the echo.
But you are few, ne?
But the rest is live.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Castro Ngobese, spokesperson for Mec'S Maile. Welcome to this media briefing that we have called today, whereby we'll be talking about the current land invasions in the province. Mec'S Maile is joined by the MEC for Infrastructure Development and Property Management and HOD of COCTA, Mr. Bongani Tradishe. MEC Maile will read the statement, and then immediately after that, we'll take questions of clarity. Over to you, MEC Maile.
Thank you very much. As Castro has already indicated, we're joined by our colleague, Mec'S Motara, because she's the custodian of the properties of government in Gauteng. So we thought it's important that she's part of the press conference, so that if there's any issues that we are not able to respond to, she'll be able to help us do that. We want to start by saying good morning and not afternoon for being part of this media briefing. Initially, we thought we will have it in the afternoon. And we've called this briefing to deal specifically with the issue of land invasions that have spiraled in recent weeks, undermining the developmental agenda and authority of the state. These illegal invasions are well coordinated and incited by connected criminal networks, taking advantage of the desperation within communities for decent housing amidst a growing backlog in the province. The backlog is currently sitting at 1.2 million, but it's growing rapidly owing to in-migration, with 300,000 people coming into the province on an annual basis looking for better opportunities and a better life. Given the volatile situation in lowly south of Joburg, where the Red Ants carried out demolitions last week Thursday, there has been public outcry about the demolitions in lieu of the national regulations as pronounced by Minister Lindiwe Sisulu that, and I quote, no evictions or demolitions, close quote, of illegal structures will occur during this lockdown. Subsequent to the demolitions in Lowly, we had engagements with the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, seeking clarity on the matter in light of the current national regulations on evictions during the lockdown, and he explained to us that the structures that were demolished were actually new structures that were not occupied by anyone. And what happened at Lowly last Sunday was that we had planned a visit to the area along with the mayor of Johannesburg in order to undertake an assessment of the situation on the ground following the demolition of incomplete and unoccupied structures. These structures were demolished to prevent land invasions. However, the criminal syndicates behind these illegal invasions spread false rumors and gave misleading information that there will be evictions in the area in order to mobilize the community. As a result of all this, a large number of community members, including the elderly and children, were mobilized to protest against the visit, totally against the lockdown regulations, which demonstrates how inhumane these criminal syndicates are, because they not only exploit the legitimate concerns of the most vulnerable members of our society for their own selfish ends, but are even willing to put the health and lives of our people at risk to achieve their nefarious ends. Perhaps a warning here to our communities to not allow themselves to be duped by these unscrupulous criminals who offer them land and also use them through inciting protest and violence, all towards selfish material gain for themselves, ultimately at the expense of development for and within our communities. There's been a notable and concerning increase in illegal land invasions since the announcement of the lockdown by President Ramaphosa. Criminal syndicates taking advantage of legitimate housing needs within communities during this unprecedented COVID-19 crisis have been behind the rise in illegal land occupations around the province. In Johannesburg, there have been illegal land grabs in places such as Alexandra, Ennerdale, Daveland, Freedom Park and Lowly, Diepsloot and Rudeport, amongst others. Whilst in Tshwane, there's been a sprawling 2-week-old informal settlement around Garankuwa and reports of invasions around Atteridgeville. These are just a few examples of areas where illegal land invasions have been occurring around the province during this period. We have been confronted with all these problems, even as we have taken a position across all spheres of government that we will not be evicting people throughout this lockdown. As a result of these developments, we called a meeting with the mayors of municipalities across the province yesterday, which reaffirmed the national position and the regulations to put a moratorium on all evictions during lockdown, but also took a principled stance that we will not tolerate any opportunistic illegality, and as such, we will unleash the full might of the law against those who want to invade land illegally during this crisis. Land invasion, unfortunately, creates many other urban management and developmental challenges for our municipalities. After invading land, the illegal occupants require services which they, in most cases, acquire illegally at the expense of the municipalities and law-abiding citizens. Illegal invasions further make our municipalities' planning and development mandate extremely difficult, also impacting negatively on our environment, especially in environmentally sensitive areas. As soon as land is invaded, the occupants are counted as part of the housing backlog, further creating problems for government, because prioritizing the allocation of proper housing to them creates resentment amongst law-abiding citizens who are on the housing waiting list already. Illegal invasions further add to the housing backlog because the land is invaded. It's often land that has already been identified for housing development, meaning that these invasions also complicate and to some extent compromise our development plans. This leads to more housing delivery protests and greater social unrest. It is important to note that the approved budget of municipalities can only address issues as identified through the integrated development plans. The invasion of land mostly occurs outside of the approval of plans and budgets, meaning that it becomes difficult, if not impossible, to provide basic services or to even formalize the settlements that mushroom out of these invasions. In light of all this, the province and all its municipalities are of the view that prevention of land invasion is the best mechanism available to enable government to plan, develop, control, and regulate human settlements development. We agreed on the following measures with all our municipalities as part of our proactive steps to deal with this issue. Comprehensive strategy to deal with illegal land invasion, proactively involving all spheres of government with an interdepartmental, multidisciplinary task team at the forefront. We have tasked the state law advisors with approaching the courts on our behalf, seeking a blanket court order to interdict and restrain any person on any properties belonging to government from unlawfully occupying these properties. Our metros have been aggressively tackling the issue through the counter land invasion units, and given their experience in dealing with this issue, we have agreed that they will be sharing their resources and expertise with municipalities in the districts and locals so that we can deal decisively with the phenomenon right across the province. Power of attorney will be issued to the metros to assist with monitoring and to enforce evictions in all instances where invasion is taking place on government-owned land across the province. We will be working in conjunction with crime intelligence in order to bring these criminal syndicates that are behind these illegal land invasions to book. Hotspots areas have been identified and monitoring teams deployed to all incomplete housing projects in the province. We will be allocating houses to rightful owners during the lockdown, finalizing all administrative requirements to hand over, although they can't take physical ownership of the houses yet during the lockdown. We are putting in place various security solutions and services to ensure protection, surveillance, and prevention of unlawful occupation of land and buildings, using the latest available technology and innovation in the field to bring this about. Unlawful occupation of government-owned land and buildings is happening as a result of impudent lawlessness, a well-orchestrated plan to dislodge the development costs undertaken by the government at all spheres. With all organized syndicates taking advantage of genuine housing concerns of communities to illegally occupy land and portray government as not caring for the people of Gauteng. There are anarchic elements mischievously fueling these illegal invasions and sabotaging the development work of government. And as a responsible, people-centered government, we will respond accordingly with the full might of the law and the sternest measures possible post-COVID-19. We are also improving our planning and coordination across all spheres of government so that the development can take place quicker. Unnecessary bureaucratic bottlenecks are removed and houses can be allocated more efficiently to our people as the ultimate measure in dealing with the issue. So we urge communities to work with law enforcement agencies and report any illegal activity in this regard so that we can be able to focus on delivering quality housing to them at an accelerated pace. Thank you.
Okay, thank MEC Maile. Now we are like to take questions. Please introduce yourself and the institution you come from, but you must go to that mic so that we can take questions. Those who are not here, we have requested them to send the questions via WhatsApp. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Nozintombi Mia from SABC TV News. I think I have questions of clarity. With regards to the issue in Loli, the Gauteng High Court today ruled against the occupants of the informal settlements. What now happens to these occupants? Are they then unceremoniously removed without alternative accommodation for them? My second question, I think, probably follows up from the first one with regards to them, with there being any temporary shelter provided for them. And with regards to the intervention that you'll be doing as the municipalities that are involved in everything, what then happens with regards to the red ants continuing with the illegal removals? I think that's probably the clarity I'm looking for. Thank you.
Edwin Ntidi, Eyewitness News. See, do we know that piece of land? I mean, what is being saved for? What is going to happen on that land?
Kosnati Shazi, Power FM News. Mr. Maile, it says here you guys have come up with proactive steps to deal with this issue. But towards the end, you guys say, with the full might of the law and sternest measures possible post-COVID-19. So will all of these issues only be solved after COVID-19 has passed?
Thank you. On the issue of land utilization, just to indicate that land, provincial land, is held by the Department of Infrastructure Development. Its use is determined between ourselves and the different municipalities. So municipalities, through their IDP process and SDBIP, which is the Special Development Plan of the municipality, we then identify and determine what the land will be used for. In the instance where land is to be identified for human settlement purposes, even within that land, there will be pockets of land which we make available for social infrastructure, schools, hospitals or clinics, libraries, youth centers, etc., which is the responsibility of the provincial government. We want to make land available for human settlements. We then pass it over to the Department of Human Settlements for that purpose. We also enter into arrangements with municipalities or even national departments for land swap. So if a municipality would want to develop the land for its own purposes, or a national department wants to develop land, also again in line with the special development plans of a municipality. So for instance, a national competence would be a police station or a court or a correctional facility. Those are national competence. We then make that land available, and that's what the land. So it's important that this land is not invaded, because ultimately there is a purpose for it. There is a need for it, and in many instances when land is invaded illegally, the illegal invaders of land also occupy land that is not suitable for human living. So it's either on wetland or it's on a floodline, and then it becomes an even bigger problem. So it's not that we don't want to make use of the land, we do, but the invasion causes other, like the MEC is indicating, developmental problems for even ourselves and municipalities. It puts different types of strains on municipal services. There's then illegal connections to electricity, even to water. You have those types of problems. But the land use is decided on between ourselves and the different municipalities using their special development plans as a barometer and a benchmark. Thanks.
Okay, it's fine. Thank you very much. Maybe I must start by, because maybe sometimes when you read, maybe you don't come across clear. Maybe to categorically state that during the lockdown period, there is not going to be any evictions. During the lockdown, there is not going to be any evictions because there's regulations that prohibits evictions. So that's the first important point. The second point is that the lockdown does not in any way encourage people to invade land illegally. So anybody who invades during lockdown, we're not going to say it's lockdown, we are waiting. No. We move in. We prevent it. We arrest them. So these two are important to understand, that there's a difference between the eviction and counter land invasion. So this is important. There will be no evictions. The meeting of the mayors with the provincial government has affirmed that there will never be any evictions in Gauteng. But if there's people who invade land, we must act on them. And that brings me to the lowly question. Because after it happened, remember, it's the city that evicted. So the Red Ends are acting on behalf of the city. We were equally concerned as the provincial government. And that's why what we did was to call the mayor and ask the mayor what is happening. Why are our people being evicted? The mayor said there's no one who's being evicted. We've got illegal activities taking place in that area because there's people who are already building shacks as we speak. And some of those shacks are not occupied. They're empty. So we have demolished shacks that are empty, that are not occupied, and that were new. So these were new shacks. Some of them 2 days, 1 day, 3 days. There's nobody there. That's what the city did. They then demolished those. They did not demolish anybody's shack. The house that they demolished, they said it was still being built at that house, and apparently it's owned by one of the people who sell land in that area. However, we don't want to rule out the possibility that there might be 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 people who might have been genuinely affected. That's why after speaking to the mayor on Saturday, I said, let's go visit that place on Sunday, because I had received an email and an SMS from residents who are saying we were affected. So I said to the mayor, let's go, because I want you to show me, because we know that there's a line where shacks have been existing, whether for the last 3 months, 4 months, but before the border. So if you say you have been evicted, you must show us where was your shack. It was here. So if your shack had crossed that line, how is it possible that that line where there were shacks before lockdown, all of a sudden it's not? So we wanted to, because these are specific people, and we didn't want to meet with the community. So I want to come back to that issue. But in doing that, because we are transparent and accountable, we invited the media to say, come. You are saying there's evictions. We don't want you to report from what people, we want to be with you. So that if people said we're evicted, and some of them the media spoke to, so the media should have brought those people, and then we solve that issue. But somebody in the syndicate, because this is a syndicate, obviously became mischievous and spread information that the MEC and the mayor are coming to meet with the community. Firstly, how can we meet with the community when the regulations prohibits that we meet with the community? Then when we got there on Sunday, we were told that there's thousands of people gathering. They are saying they are waiting to be addressed by us. Those people were not just coming from Loli. They were coming from other areas. They were transported. They were bussed in. Who paid for that? Who mobilized them? So this shows you that here we're dealing with very organized, dangerous, heartless, sophisticated criminals. And they are able to manipulate and use our people. I saw our people carrying boards saying we evicting them. Another one even insulted me on Twitter. Actually insulted my mother, but I inboxed him, and we'll deal with it that way. So I'm saying it went to that extent where we are now even being insulted, as if we have ordered evictions of. We will never. We are not heartless. We know that we exist as government to serve the people. We are in government at the behest of our people. So we ask our people not to listen to criminals who are using them to make money, because they even sell these stands to people, and they create a false impression that they will be able to. Now there's a court case, as you have already said, Nontombi. Who's funding that court case? Who's funding? There's been 3 cases in the last few. You know, there was one on Saturday, they lost. And when they went on Saturday, I think there were 8 or 12. There's another one, they were lodging yesterday. They had increased to 200. Today, they are 800. And when you look at the numbers increases, but the issues are the same, using the same affidavit and all that. And you can see that these people are determined to cause anarchy. And this is not going to help the cause of development and the cause of our people. So we want to ask media, because I know sometimes, because of our weaknesses previously as government, how things were done. There's a lot of trust issues. On this one, let's communicate the message that's clear. No one is going to be evicted. But the second message is that illegal invasion must be tackled immediately and hence decisively. But if there's anybody, as we have seen in certain instances where the police and the army had wrongfully and manhandled our people, there is no minister of police that said manhandle our people. There's no president that said manhandle our people, but there's mischief. So even some individuals in the execution of the prevention of land invasion, there might be one or two mischievous individuals. We are not going to protect those people. And that's why we are communicating today unambiguously. No one is going to be evicted, but no one is allowed to occupy land illegally in the name of lockdown, COVID-19, and all other reasons that they advance. And that's why I'm talking about the law. So someone was saying, you are saying the law now and then post-COVID-19. What we are saying is that post-COVID-19, we will implement the law because there's court orders we have before the lockdown, which must be implemented, but we can't implement them because the regulations are saying we must keep social distance, saying people must stay in the houses. So it will be contradiction to remove people and then you say they must stay indoors. We're not going to do that. So that's why we shouldn't. Our priority now is to defeat this virus, is to work together in a coordinated way. And that's why we don't want to be distracted by people who are invading land. And we shouldn't be patient with those people. And we shouldn't be nice with them. We must use the full might of the law and descend on them. I think I would have dealt with all the issues because they are interlinked. I thought I'll take a bit of time because it's important that we explain these two things, eviction and counter land invasion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just before Edwin, MEC, we've got two questions from Mr. Zingisa from the Sunday Times. I will just read them to you in verbatim. MEC is saying houses are allocated during lockdown, but no occupation of such will be allowed during the lockdown. My question is then, why allocate if people are not allowed to occupy immediately because of the lockdown? And also, how many houses have been allocated during the lockdown so far? Secondly, how did the MEC arrive at the conclusion that it is a criminal syndicate behind the protest over the demolition of the incomplete and unoccupied structures as opposed to genuine people in need of housing, given the housing backlog?
MEC, I think Untombi has asked Uguti now what's going to happen to those people who have been left homeless as a result of those demolitions by the Red Ants.
Thank you. Yeah, as I've said that if there is somebody by mistake, any chance has been evicted, already the mayor of Johannesburg has tasked the Department of Social Development in the city to find those people and allocate them accommodation. So no one will not have accommodation because they were victims of mischief by somebody. But obviously there will be a process of verifying if indeed you are affected, because the city has been working there and we are satisfied with the work that they're doing. So we would work with them and not just leave it to chance. And well, how did we come to the conclusion that this is criminality? Because it is criminality, it's well coordinated, and I have explained earlier on how people were mobilized, they were bussed, the owner of the house, which people sell stands. In fact, even people, it's not even my conclusion, by the way. Even people locally have been raising this issue. The police have been following on this issue. In fact, that part of Johannesburg, the south, that whole area, since 2016, it has gone out of control. You will remember the Lenasia situation where myself and Mec'S Motara went. It's not for the first time. And these issues recurring. And unfortunately, because we had a city at the time which had a crazy mayor who was not interested in people's interest, and he was just obsessed with himself and PR. He did not deal with these issues. And that is why they intensified during his term. 2016, we have seen the upsurge of informal settlements, illegal informal settlements, especially in the southern part of Johannesburg. And the same in Tshwane. If you look, since 2016, there's been one illegal informal settlement in Ekurhuleni. Others have just been trying to extend and all that. And that is somewhere in Germiston, in town. So the mayor explains that they could not see it and all that, which shows you that if you work and communicate and coordinate as the different spheres of government, irrespective of who's in power, but in the interest of our people, we will be able to solve these issues. So it is a criminal activity, and that's why we have reported to the police. By the way, there's even criminal cases that were opened previously, but because sometimes our people don't cooperate with the police or are themselves involved in these, some of the people who must give us information are themselves involved. They don't give that information, they make it difficult. We've got a lot of cases that have been opened there. So it is criminal activity. It must be reported as such, be confronted as such, and that's why in the meeting we had with the mayors, we also had both Mec'S Motara and Mec'S Faith Mazubuko to deal with the aspect of law enforcement. And the allocation of houses, you see, the idea is to make sure that everybody knows their house. So you must know, this is my house. So you can't allow anyone to occupy your house. The reason we're saying you can't physically occupy, because what it means is that you must take your furniture. So you need a van and all that. That's not an essential service. There's regulations that says what essential services, but regulations are saying, well, let's stay at home indoors too. So we can't be saying people must be all over moving furniture, moving houses. That will be irresponsible. But what we are saying is that there shouldn't be any house that stays idle and no one knows who's the owner of that house. That's the point we are raising.
Can we take the last round of questions? Last round? In the absence of that, thanks for coming. Thank you very much. The press conference is adjourned.